Welcome to our latest explainer. You know, there are literally billions of dollars flying around our education system right now, but to truly see where that money actually lands, we need to zoom in. Today, we're going to use Broward County, Florida as our micro lens to untangle a deeply layered and frankly, absolutely fascinating financial system. We're calling it the education shell game. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore the really stark tension between the promise of lottery-funded education and the heavy, enduring reality of local property taxes. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this mystery by asking the exact question taxpayers naturally have when they look at their increasingly empty wallets. And that question is simply, where did all the education money go? I mean, people are seeing their property tax bills going up, right? Yet, at the very same time, public school districts are warning about declining enrollment, intense funding pressures, empty buildings, and even outright school closures. It's a total paradox, and it definitely demands a clear explanation. Well, it all starts with the promise. We all remember the original pitch: buy a lottery ticket, support the schools, and reduce the financial burden on everyday taxpayers and homeowners. Play the game, help the kids. It was supposed to take the heavy weight off the shoulders of the local property owner.
But over time, what we've actually ended up with is the education shell game. It's his incredibly layered, complicated funding system drawing from lotteries, property taxes, state taxes, and local referendums. Because it's so complex, it makes it incredibly difficult to track exactly who is paying, who actually benefits, and what outcomes are being produced. And just to be super clear up front, this explainer isn't about taking sides on parent choice or tax policy. It's purely about following the money and demanding some basic public accountability.
Now here is where a widespread myth instantly shatters. Think about the official breakdown of a single Florida lottery dollar. When you drop $10 on a ticket, only about 25%, so roughly $2.50, actually reaches Florida education. The vast majority, about 66.7%, goes straight back out to pay prizes. The rest? Well, that covers retailer commissions, vendor fees, and lottery administration. So yes, the lottery does send money to education, but it was never designed to cover the whole bill.
That being said, we absolutely have to acknowledge the scale of the money here. Statewide, the lottery is projected to provide $2.513 billion for education in the 2025-26 budget. Make no mistake, that is meaningful, substantial money. However, it really just acts as one stream in a much, much larger ocean of funding that still relies very heavily on your taxes.
Let's see how this all breaks down. Because that $2.5 billion isn't just handed over to neighborhood K-12 classrooms. It's actually spread incredibly thin across a whole bunch of different institutions. You have $853.7 million for public schools and workforce education, sure. But then you also have $652.7 million going to state universities, $747.1 million for Bright Futures and other aid, and another $259.1 million for Florida colleges.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that when you isolate just the public schools, lottery funds account for merely 2.7% of Florida's total public school operating budget. Just 2.7%. Knowing that tiny percentage completely changes the narrative of the lottery single-handedly funding our neighborhood schools, doesn't it?
In fact, to truly grasp why the lottery could never actually replace the broader tax burden, consider this somewhat mind-blowing fact. If schools had to rely purely on lottery cash, their doors would stay open for exactly 5 days out of the entire school year. Literally just 5 days.
Section 1. The Microlens, Broward County.
Let's zoom in. In Broward County, the 2025-26 lottery-funded education allocation is exactly $127.8 million. When you hear that number, it sounds massive, right? You would naturally think the local public schools are practically swimming in lottery cash.
But watch how fast that money vanishes from the K-12 budget. Out of that massive allocation, $74.5 million goes straight to Bright Futures disbursements. Another $44.2 million goes to workforce development and Florida colleges. Basically, a vast majority of this money bypasses the K-12 district operating budgets entirely. And that leaves us with a pretty startling reality. Only $9.1 million is tied directly to keeping K-12 class sizes small in the county. That tiny slice is exactly why the old slogan, "Lottery funds education," feels so incredibly empty to a local taxpayer who watches their own neighborhood school struggling with budget pressures.
Section 2. The property tax reality.
So, if the lottery is only covering a tiny fraction of the cost, who pays the rest? Well, here's the enduring simple math that actually keeps your local schools running. You take your home's taxable value, divide it by 1,000, and multiply it by Broward's current millage rate, which happens to be 6.4845 mils for 2025-26. This is the formula placed squarely and permanently on local property owners.
And this is the active financial reality for everyday households. If your taxable value is $100,000, your estimated school tax is about $648. For a $250,000 taxable value, you're paying over $1,600. And a $400,000 taxable value, that means you are cutting a check for almost $2,600 every single year. The lottery didn't replace your burden at all. Local homeowners are still the heavy lifters here.
Section 3. The reassessment shock.
Now, to understand this next part, we have to look at a benefit called Save Our Homes. Essentially, this limits the annual assessment increases for homesteaded property, meaning longtime owners get a cap on how much their taxable value can actually rise. Now, this cap is a massive benefit for them, but when a home is sold, that cap vanishes. The property resets closer to market value, creating a huge influx of new tax revenue.
Let's look at a scenario. Same $500,000 home, but wildly different taxes. For a long-time owner, they benefit from that cap, pushing their taxable value down to, say, $180,000, making their school tax a modest $1,167. But the new buyer, their tax bill resets and skyrockets to over $3,000 for the exact same house. This constant churn of reassessments quietly feeds the local school funding machine, ensuring new buyers always pay significantly more. All right, so let's summarize the core layers of this expectation versus reality arc we've just uncovered. 1. The lottery money exists, absolutely, but it's just a fraction of the whole picture. 2. The school taxes remain, heavily funding the system. 3. Reassessments continue to turn changing homeownership into massive new revenue streams. And 4. At the end of the day, the homeowner just keeps paying. After untangling all these complicated threads, the nonpartisan demand from taxpayers is actually pretty simple. Before we are asked for another dollar, another referendum, another reassessment, or another fee, Florida should provide one thing: a receipt. Not a catchy slogan, not a campaign promise, but a clear, itemized public receipt showing exactly how all these disparate funding streams work together. Because as we look forward to the next part of our analysis, where we'll be focusing on expanding vouchers, declining enrollment, and empty school buildings, we have to leave you with this provocative thought. If the money is really supposed to follow the child, where did the students go, where did the funding follow, and who is actually left paying for the massive public system that remains? Think about that for a bit, and we'll see you in the next explainer.